Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 335, Corona Fascism. So I've been giving some videos on the coronavirus that perhaps it's a fabricated pandemic or epidemic, that perhaps it was contrived by the brokers of New World Order government. It's possible. I mean, I don't really know. But the fact of the matter is, when there's global catastrophe, there's great benefactors in corporations that make a lot of money. So what is fascism? Fascism, I'll use a definition by a man named Benito Mussolini. He was the Italian fascist in World War II, and he defined fascism as the fusion of state and corporate powers. I think he probably knew what he was talking about. And so how does fascism work? Well, fascism works like this. As you centralize powers in a central authority, they create regulations, and these regulations actually create problems, or like regulations that need to be solved by corporations, and the corporations then, through edict of the government, land these contracts. Then how are they paid with the contracts? They're paid through the public treasury. So they extract tax dollars. They're paid through the government to the corporations to solve these problems of federal regulation. And now that these monies are concentrated in the hands of the corporations, then they take those dollars and they pass them back to the federal government through lobbying efforts and so on and so forth, and through buying politicians. And so therefore the centralization of authority in the federal government occurs, followed by larger and larger corporations that are working hand in glove with the federal government. That's fascism. So how does the coronavirus play into that? Well, right when there were like 50 or 100 cases of coronavirus that were discovered in some region of China, the World Health Organization was sounding the alarm. The CDC was instructed to start, figuring this thing out, and all these federal regulators came in. Well, what got released? We created the state of emergency, and when you make a state of emergency, public tax dollars get released to these large corporations and these large regulatory bodies to help solve problems. So what do? Well, what they do is they start creating all sorts of products like vaccine testing kits, vaccine assays to try to figure out who has the virus, treatments, and also vaccinations. That's what happens. And so since the coronavirus outbreak, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, have been instituted into the pipeline to major corporations throughout the globe to help solve this pandemic, which how many people have died in America? Zero, right? Zero people have died from coronavirus in America, and we're mobilizing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to help fight this pandemic. Well, that doesn't make any sense. But here's the deal, by the way, right? So I read in my paper today, my little small town paper, that every hospital in America is going to get coronavirus testing kits. Well, how many coronavirus testing kits are they going to get? Well, my guess is this, there's 5,000 hospitals in America. Some hospitals are bigger than others, but let's say each hospital gets 10 testing kits, or on average 10 testing kits. So 5,000 times 10, that's 50,000, right? And maybe make it 20 testing kits for simple math. So all of a sudden that turns into 100,000 testing kits are going to be distributed around the nation. So you have 100,000 testing kits, and what do these things cost per testing kit? Well, if they cost $10 per testing kit, right? Suddenly you're up to $1 million. If they cost $100 per testing kit, you're up to $10 million. If it costs $1,000 per testing kit, you get the math, and you can move this math rather rapidly northward. And these testing kits, I can tell you, are not cheap. Perhaps they're $5,000. I don't even know. And nobody will ever tell you how much they cost, because who's paying for them? It's not the hospitals that are paying for them. It's like the CDC, the National Institutes of Health, and all these bureaucratic large institutions that are redistributing the money around the globe. And so the bottom line is the American taxpayer is the one that actually pays for these testing kits. And so somebody somewhere in some major corporation just got their hand inside the public treasury, and they're taking public tax dollars for the benefit of their corporations for a pandemic that really isn't even a pandemic yet. So that's what fascism is. And so we, as good liberty-loving Americans, or whatever we are, or Roman Catholics that are truth seekers, should always question whenever a pandemic or a great travesty is taking a foot, because usually it's corporations working with governments trying to create some great catastrophe to either A, increase federal regulation, or B, take money out of the public treasury and send it to the benefactors of those corporations. And so that is just something to think about. Now let's think about this whole global New World Order environmental movement. Is the world a much horrible, more polluted place today than it was, say, 100 years ago? I think not. It doesn't look that way to me. It doesn't perceive that way to anybody except for maybe some carbon footprint type obscure scientific knowledge about perhaps the Earth's getting slightly warmer. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what has rolled out from that great catastrophe? Well, Al Gore, the great benefactor or the fascist of American government, who was in the White House, when he left the White House, he was worth approximately $2 million. 8 years later, he was worth approximately $50 million. What did Al Gore do after he left the White House? Well, he sat on corporate boards. He gave public speeches. He was rewarded greatly by governments and corporations around the globe to help push the globalist agenda for new green technology. So, new green technology, has it solved the global warming catastrophe? No, it hasn't. Have we decreased our carbon footprint? No, we haven't. So what are we doing, people? We're just redistributing billions upon billions upon billions of dollars from the power brokers in government, to the power brokers in corporations, and then they feed each other back and forth. And it's all from the public treasury within the New World Order global organizations. That's what fascism is. I mean, look at EV vehicles, electronic or battery-powered vehicles, for example. You have to create a whole industry of mining just to get the goods for the batteries, the cobalt and the tungsten and all sorts of heavy metals. Then you have to take these heavy metals and you have to ship them around the globe, and then you have to manufacture batteries. And when you manufacture batteries, it's estimated, by the way, that the average electric vehicle has 80,000 miles of fossil fuels on it before it even leaves the factory versus an internal combustion engine, which has 0. And then these battery-powered vehicles are on average 500 to 1,000 pounds heavier because batteries are exquisitely heavy compared to internal combustion engines. Therefore, battery-powered vehicles have to consume more energy because they're heavier, right? That's simple physics, right? So if you're consuming more energy in these battery-powered cars, where is the energy coming from? Let's do the analysis. A lot of it comes from fossil fuels. A lot of it comes from coal power plants. A lot of it comes from you name it. And so somebody do the analysis. Do battery-powered cars even save fossil fuels in any way? And no, but they created a major industry that got federal mandates and regulations to help redistribute public dollars to corporations. I mean, this Elon Musk, he's never run a profit in the entire life of Tesla, but he gets $7,500 of United States public tax dollars every car he sells because it's one of those favored industries. That's the definition of fascism. So we as Catholics, when we walk through this world and we see catastrophes rising up, and then the media on board with it, governmental organizations on board with it, everybody on board with it, but you as the body politic and the sovereign people of the country go, I don't know anybody with coronavirus. Boy, there's no deaths in America from coronavirus. Well, then you got to realize this is probably something that was contrived for the benefit of corporations and government. That, my friend, is the definition of fascism. Now, all that being said, my disclaimer is this. I could be wrong. Perhaps this coronavirus will wipe out the globe. It's possible, but not very probable. This is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe, get the Mass, pray the daily rosary, and live a sacramental life. God bless you all.